After the first seizure, the doctors at the hospital put me on Dilantin, and as a matter of fact, wrote the prescription wrong for it was supposed to be 100 milligrams 3 times a day. The doctor wrote, the intern wrote 300 milligrams 3 times a day, which sent me into a toxic state a week later. So it was not a great start, not a good experience, first experience with medication. But once we got it straight, the medication seemed to work. I went about 2 years seizure-free. And after 2 years, I moved to a different state. And so every time you move, you've got to find a new doctor, a new neurologist and everything. And my new neurologist said, you've only had one seizure. Usually we don't start medicating until, you've had multiple seizures, and it's a full-on epilepsy diagnosis. She said, we could try weaning you off and sort of see what happens. And the side effects from the Dilantin were not great. I mean, it was, I gained weight. I felt tired often. I struggled with focus, cognitive focus sort of thing. And so I was actually pretty eager to give it a try. So we did. She weaned me off, slowly. And after about a month, I had another seizure. And so she said, well, okay, looks like we need to, it looks like this truly is epilepsy and we truly need to keep you on medication. So she did change me to a different medication, oxcarbazepine, because it has a side effect profile that's a little less harsh. And so she put me on a prescription for that. And that was kind of it for a long time. I mean, it was take a pill in the morning, take a pill at night, and sort of live your life. And it worked, for a long time. Thankfully, I'm very lucky in that way, that medication has been very helpful to me. And so I went about 10 years before I had another seizure. Which was great. But I'll tell the story real quick. I mean, that seizure was a pretty major event. I was actually driving at the time on the highway, and sort of felt it coming on, sort of, heard music, again, I think my current neurologist says, it's probably a sign that my seizures begin as a focal seizure in the auditory center of the brain and then spread. So I started feeling that and realizing, oh, something's wrong here. Pulled the car over, quickly took an extra pill that I had, in my dashboard there. But it was too late. The next thing I knew, again, I was in the hospital. And my car weaved across 2 lanes of traffic, across a meridian, across 2 other lanes of traffic, and came to rest close to an abutment. By some miracle, no crash. The car was fine. I ended up fine. My dog in the back seat was fine. A very kind fire marshal took him home with him so that my wife could pick him up afterwards. Medication is great, and when it works, but when it doesn't, it's a bit of a scary, terrible thing. So at that time, and I was a few hours away from. I was actually on a long distance road trip, so I was a few hours away. My wife gets a call in the middle of a Sunday afternoon, says, your husband's been in an accident. We need you to come get him. I guess the next thing that happened was I was went to my neurologist that I was seeing at the time. Very nice guy, and again, over the years, he would call it my drive-through appointment. Annually, I go see him, say hello, get a refill on my prescription, do a couple of blood tests, and off I went, kind of thing. So I kind of felt like, it was all well in hand in a way. So I went to see him and said, okay, I've had this seizure. What should we do? And he said, nah, I'm not too worried about it. I said, okay. And so he said, well, let's just increase the dosage on your medication. Okay. So we tried that. And then I went a few more months seizure-free, and then had another seizure. This time was at work, right in the middle of a meeting in the conference room. It was somewhat of a stressful meeting. My boss was there, my colleagues were there, and next thing again, seized and ended up at the hospital again, and the whole rigmarole. So there's sort of no more vulnerable feeling than being at work with your boss and everyone, and you're unconscious on the floor. But they were very good about it. They were very supportive, and that was great. So again, back to my neurologist. He said, well, let's increase the dosage again, and see what happens here. But in the meantime, I had actually heard, I had been looking into the low carb diet. I guess I kind of say I'd been playing around with low carb just for my weight, as middle-aged guy, putting on a few pounds, but little by little over the years. And so I had gotten into this low carb diet and just listening to some podcasts and reading about it and these things. And I happened to hear a podcast with Jim Abrams, who is the founder of the Charlie Foundation. And he was talking about the ketogenic diet for epilepsy. And wait a minute, I hadn't heard that before. So at that point, I really started looking seriously into it, after that second seizure. And I guess this was 5 years ago now. And looked out and I was lucky again in the sense that Johns Hopkins is an hour from where we live. And so, I reached out to them and managed to get enrolled in their adult diet epilepsy program. So that really is where the journey began as far as the Modified Atkins Diet for me. I did talk to my neurologist at the time. I was seeing a neurologist who was at a university here in DC, University Medical Center, and well regarded in the field of medication. So I talked to him and I said, what about this ketogenic diet? I would like to explore it. And he said, well, we don't do that here. And I said, well, okay. where do they do it? And that's where I really decided to sort of take it into my own hands, but really be more proactive in trying to seek this out, because I really felt that there was something here for me with the diet. Really my attitude is why not throw everything we can at this, right? And so, being able to be active, a participant in my treatment and not just waiting for a doctor to prescribe a medication, it's empowering.